part of that, as the Wall Street Journal editorial page says, is it's just employers aren't participating the way they should. So it takes a month to revise those numbers. Is the Wall Street Journal right?
Well, no, because, again, this was the biggest revision, I believe, in 30 years. And this, again, it's a 5 standard deviation miss. You didn't land in Newark instead of New York. You landed in Denver.
That's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent dismantling Joe Scarborough's lame attempt to spin the Bureau of Labor Statistics' historic screw-up like it's just business as usual. But when your objective truth is 258,000 jobs off, that's not a rounding error. That's government incompetence on full display. Welcome to Nerk News. I'm Nerkish, and it looks like the establishment media is pulling overtime to protect one of the most embarrassing data failures in modern history. Because when the BLS wipes out 250,000 jobs from its own numbers, you'd think everyone would be demanding answers. Instead, MSNBC treats critical thinking like heresy. Here's Mika trying to frame this as some sort of rejection of objective truth on par with Argentina.
Given the importance of trustworthy economic data internally for the American people and also externally for our position globally, are you at all concerned about the threats to Jerome Powell's job, the firing of the head of the BLS, that our country will lose its global position, its economic strength, based on the lack of believable objective facts?
President Trump has said that he's not going to fire Chair Powell. President Trump has a great reverence for the institution of the Federal Reserve. And, as I said, he likes to work the referees. And that's his right, just as Senator Warren does the same thing. In terms of the BLS, I think that this was long overdue. I mean, the mistake that they made last week was a 5 to 6 standard deviation mistake. This is like if you got on a plane in Miami, thought you were going to New York, and landed in Denver. I mean, so I actually think that cleaning up the BLS was something that should have been done long ago. And I agree that the efficacy and the believability of our economic projections are very important. But, Mika, the other thing I can tell you is that, there's something wrong here, because on Wednesday, the Federal Reserve voted not to cut rates. On Friday, the BLS had this massive downward revision. One of these is mistaken. So either the Fed economists did not see what the BLS did, the BLS data was corrupted, and, I can tell you that, the BLS in government, we have settled for so much mediocrity across the government.
Mika's whole routine is exactly the kind of overcooked fear-mongering they use when the facts aren't on their side. Reviewing corrupted processes isn't rejecting truth, it's demanding better truth. And the facts here are brutal. 73,000 jobs added in July, with a 258,000 job downward revision for May and June. That's the largest non-pandemic correction on record. According to Fox Business, economist Steve Moore said the Biden administration vastly overestimated job creation by 1.5 million jobs. That's a gigantic error. I think they did it on purpose. That's not some partisan talking point. It's a historic data failure. But instead of acknowledging the incompetence, Mika's pretending oversight is the real danger. Here's Joe going to bat for the bureaucrats with an excuse list so long he can't even keep it straight.
BLS, in many of their cells, the things that they fill in, they used to have 100% the surveys. Some of them, they're just down to 30% of actual data, and then they're intuiting or imputing the other data. So, this is a long-needed change, and the head of BLS is responsible for this.
But Mr. Secretary, first of all, there have been cuts to the department. Secondly, as the Wall Street Journal editorial page said last week, the fact that they're having to do exactly what you're saying, projecting out, it doesn't have anything to do with ideology, doesn't have anything to do with who appointed them, has to do with employers who are not participating as much in these surveys as they used to participate in the surveys. So there are always these revisions. And the next month, and this has been going on for decades, where you and I, Mika, everybody will watch and they'll go, they revised May's numbers. So they were 80% off. That's been going on forever.
You know, if the employers aren't providing this, then the BLS, it was incumbent on the BLS to find a new way of collecting data. You know, it just strikes me as very lazy work, trying to do things the same old way and expect a different result.
How important is it that an independent voice, an independent thinker is replaced in that position? How important is that for the markets? How important is that for the U.S. economy? How important is that for the world to look at us and not think, oh, wait a second, the United States is now doing what Argentina has done for the past 10 years?
Look, I think the replacement is going to be a highly competent statistician or labor economist, and it will be someone, you know, who won't have errors of this magnitude.
I mean, Joe's spin cycle on this is something to behold. First, it's DOGE's fault, except those cuts aren't even fully implemented yet. Then revisions happen all the time, so who cares? Then it's the employer's fault for not submitting data. Call me crazy, but this feels more like the usual government rules for the and not for me shtick, where they pass the blame on to Americans. The BLS's job is to secure the data and compliance. The only thing that's normal about this is the lack of accountability from useless bureaucrats and the dishonesty of the liberal hacks and media running cover for them. But let me know what you think. Should Trump's team clean house at the BLS and overhaul the entire data process? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye!